welcome once again. You're welcome to the Digital Ed series of April edition 2025. Can you send me the emojis to show that you're eager to be here? You're welcome. If you are new here, the Digital Ed series is hosted by Legacy Lab, and it's a monthly webinar and workshop on digital skills and industry trends. This webinar takes place on every last Thursday. For each webinar, we always have experienced and knowledgeable speakers on board. I go by the name Omomi Bubupiodun. I'm your host to the most, like I always say. And for more clarifications, you can go to our YouTube channel and at Legacy Lab NG, our Twitter channel, our Instagram handle at legacylab.ng. And tonight, I'm about to introduce speaker. You know how we do it. Whenever our speaker is coming on board, we're sending our emojis. So I need the emojis flowing right now. Yes, I need the emojis flowing right now. Okay, tonight we have our maybe speaker, Rajesh, is a principal data architect. And tonight we'll be speaking on the topic enabling responsible AI through data. The AI conversation is no longer just about capability, it's about responsibility. So I want you guys to welcome Rajesh on board while it takes us through today's series. Kindly send in your emoji. You're welcome, Rajesh. You're welcome. You can take over now, sir.
Sure. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone, wherever you are across the globe. Can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, good. Hmm. Thank you for the opportunity to come and present in this platform. So the topic that I would be presenting is enabling responsible AI through data. Um, I mean, right now, AI is everywhere, but can we trust it is a question. So myself, Rajesh Vayala, I'm a principal data architect working for a financial sector company. And my job is to build intelligent systems responsibly using the data. You know, so the topic, we are actually moving from a world, where we ask what AI can do it to what it should do. So I would like to pose a question to the group. Have you ever wondered, how decisions made by machines, like loan approvals or like hiring recommendations, are actually made? If you are, this presentation, will help you to understand. So let's go to the next slide. So here, what we'll be covering today, we'll begin with the why responsible AI has become such a pressing priority across industries. Then we will look at how data, not just the models, is a real foundation of fairness and ethical AI. We will explore common risks like bias and privacy violations and walk through practical strategies and tools to address them. Along the way, I will share some real world case studies from both cautionary tales and inspiring successes. By the end, we will look ahead to emerging frameworks and what your teams can do starting tomorrow. If at any point of the time you have questions, please note them. We will address them at the end of this discussion. So, why responsible AI now? So, AI systems are no longer theoretical. They are making real decisions that impact lives, from approving loans to recommending medical treatments to determining who gets interviewed for a job. But we have also seen a way of AI gone wrong. Discriminatory hiring tools, surveillance misuse, even flawed health risk scores. So these failures aren't just technical; they're ethical and they cost real people opportunities trust, and safety. At the same time, we are seeing global regulatory efforts step in. Um, the EU AI Act, frameworks from NIST, and national data protection laws. But the truth is, regulations alone cannot fix these problems. As builders and users of AI, we must embed responsibility into every stage of development, and that starts with how we treat our data. So here you can see the key components of responsible AI. So the pie chart visualizes the five pillars of responsible AI, that is fairness, transparency, accountability, privacy, and ethical alignment. While each slice is distinct, they are inseparable. For example, a system might be fair in its outcome, but completely opaque in how it works. That's not responsible. Similarly, an AI may be transparent, but still lack privacy safeguards. So the goal is to balance these companies in every system we build or evaluate. And again, each of these starts, guess what? Data. So if your data is biased, incomplete, or improperly collected, none of these pillars can stand. This chart reminds us that responsible AI isn't a one-note machine. It's a symphonium of ethical issues or values. So what is responsible AI? So responsible AI isn't just about avoiding legal issues, it's about ensuring that AI systems reflect and reinforce the values we hold as a society. So this means AI that is fair, explainable, secure, and accountable, not just technically performant. Importantly, responsibility must be embedded across the full AI lifecycle. So from data collection to design to development and post-launch monitoring, it is not just a goal we check off at the end. It is a continuous process. And it is not solely the job of the data scientist or compliance officer, it is everyone's job. So, responsible AI requires cross functional commitment and a culture that values long term trust over short term efficiency. So the role of data in responsible AI. So let's be very clear, So data is not just something we feed into a model. It is the foundation that everything else is built on. If that foundation is cracked, if the data is biased, incomplete, or poorly labeled, the entire structure of your AI system is compromised. So we often hear garbage in is garbage out, and that could not be truer in AI. Even the most advanced algorithms can overcome poor input. That's why responsible AI starts with designing ethical, representative, and high quality data pipelines. It's also why diverse data matters, not just technically, but socially. If we want AI works for everyone, the data must reflect everywhere or everyone. So, what are some of the learning objectives? So, let me briefly walk you through what I hope you will walk away with this presentation. First, you will leave with a clear understanding of what responsible AI is and why it's necessary. You will also be able to spot common data centric risks that jeopardize AI trustworthiness. More importantly, you'll gain best practices that you can immediately apply to your work, whether you're building, managing, or auditing AI systems. We will explore some of the tools that leaders in the field are using to support responsible data practices. And finally, you will be empowered to spark a culture shift because responsible AI does not happen in isolation. It happens through shared values and continuous improvement. So the reality of data-centric risks. When AI systems goes wrong, it's often not the model that's to blame. It's the data, biases, inaccuracies, and gaps baked into the data sets manifest as failures in prediction, fairness, and trust. So, what is the problem here? So, these issues often go undetected until a system is live and affecting real users. At that point, fixing the model can be costly, and in some cases, reputational damage is irreversible. That's why we need to identify and address these risks early in the AI development life cycle. Think of it like public health. So prevention always beats emergency care. So this section explores the most common type of data risks in AI, why they arise, and how to recognize them before they harm your users or your organization. So as in the so this slide covers about the prevalent data centric risks. So as you can see in the bar chart, so that shows the result from an industry meta-analysis on AI failures across sectors. So notice that bias often due to non-representative or historical data is the most commonly reported issue, followed by privacy violations. But look further, data quality and representation gaps are close behind, and even risks like poor annotations and lack of data lineage, while less frequently reported, and can completely derail ethical AI initiatives. So this visual is important because it reminds us AI isn't falling due to bad algorithms. It's falling because the data we fed it is broken or biased. And unless we fix the source, we will keep building broken systems and we will build it faster. So in this slide, I would like to talk about bias in training or training data. So bias doesn't usually show up because someone coded it in. It shows up because models learn patterns from data, and our data reflects a world that's unequal. For instance, Amazon had to abandon a hiring algorithm that penalized resumes containing the word women's. Why? Because the training data came from 10 years of mostly male hiring history. Similarly, a face recognition models perform worse on people of color because the training data was skewed toward lighter colored tones. So this is not malicious AI. This is careless data. And these biases does not get fixed through better modeling alone. They have to be identified, understood, and corrected at the data level. So the privacy and consent violations. So AI thrives on data, but that does not mean it's entitled to all of it. Many systems collect far more data than they need, often without clear user consent or understanding. Worse, poorly anonymized data sets can be reverse engineered to re-identify individuals, especially in healthcare or finance. So these are not just ethical violations, they are legal liabilities. So the GDPR in Europe and HIPAA in the US are setting clear boundaries, and failure to comply can result in massive fines. So, but beyond compliance, privacy is a moral obligation. If we expect users to trust our AI systems, we must treat their data with respect, minimum collection, and make consent meaningful but not buried in the fine print. So, how and why data quality and what is data drift? So, even if your model starts out strong, poor data quality can erode its performance over time. So inaccuracies, missing values, and inconsistent labeling lead to unpredictable outcome. And the worst part is the data drift, a phenomenon where your input data changes due to evolving real world conditions. So makes yesterday model obsolete. Think of fraud detection during COVID. Consumers' behavior shifted overnight and models trained on pre-pandemic data became unreliable. So that's why responsible AI involves ongoing data monitoring and retraining. So you wouldn't trust a pilot who flew based on outdated weather reports. So don't let your AI fly behind or fly blind either. So we have to be very careful with data quality and data drift. So what are some of the representation gaps? So representation gaps are among the most dangerous because they are often invisible until someone is harmed. So imagine a healthcare model that works great on urban populations but fails on rural communities. Or consider the pulse oximeter case. It reads the blood oxygen levels less accurately in people with darker skin because it was trained mostly on lighter skinned patients. So this is just inconvenient, it's life threatening. And it didn't happen because engineers didn't care. It happened because no one stopped to ask who is missing from this data set. Responsible AI means intentionally building inclusivity into data sourcing, So sometimes that means oversampling underrepresented groups or forming partnerships with marginalized communities. So we have to be very careful about inclusion isn't just about a policy, it's a data decision. So what are annotations and labeling bias? So labels are the ground truth your model learns from. But what if the truth is flawed? Annotation bias happens when labelers apply their own beliefs, so cultural assumptions or misunderstanding of the data. So, for instance, hate speech data sets often reflect Western norms and may flag phrases that are neutral in other cultures as offensive. Even something as basic as sentiment labeling can be distorted by regional language usage. That's why diverse labeling themes, cross validation, and cultural reviews are essential. If labels are skewed, the model will learn to mimic that skew without ever knowing it did something wrong. So, what are some of the data lineage and provenance issues? So, would you publish a scientific paper without citing your resources? Then, why should we deploy AI models based on mystery data? So sadly, many datasets used today have no clear origin, no change log, and no metadata. So this breaks reproducibility, complicates compliance, and removes any chance of accountability. So if you can't trace how a data was collected, who labeled it, and when it was last updated, how can you trust it? So the data lineage and metadata practices aren't just technical hygiene, they are ethical foundations. So they allow us to audit, improve, defend our AI systems in a world where scrutiny is only growing. So why these best practices are non-negotiable? So when data practices are weak or rust, models suffer, and so do people. So what seems like a shortcut during deployment often becomes a liability later. So whether it's a fairness lawsuit, a regulatory fine, or a PR nightmare, so poor data handling comes at a high cost. But when you embed best practices from the beginning, like thoughtful data collection, rigorous cleaning, and transparent documentation, you create systems that are not only safer but also more robust. So this isn't just about checking boxes, it's about building trust, reliability, and long-term success. So responsible AI isn't a technical fix, it's a culture one. So your practices reflect your priorities, and ethics should be one of them. So the ethical data collection starts with transparency and respect. So users should know when data is collecting or being collected, what it's being used for, and how it will be protected. So too often, AI projects scrape data from forums, social media, or public websites without clear permission. So just because it's technically possible doesn't mean it's ethically right. So informed consent is the foundation of data dignity. So if we expect users to trust AI systems, we need to trust them with the truth. So make it easy for people to say yes or no to data collection and never ever manipulate or pressure people into giving up their privacy. So ensure representation and inclusion. So diversity in data sets isn't just a fairness issue, so it's a functionality issue. So if your data only reflects the majority, your model will only work well for the majority. So for everyone else, marginalized, misdiagnosed, or excluded. So we have seen this with health tools, hiring algorithms, and even chatbots. So to counter this, we must be intentional, oversample underrepresented groups, include edge cases, and test performance across subgroups. Better yet, collaborate with communities to create inclusive datasets. So equity is a design choice, and that choice starts with the data. So clean and validate your data. So cleaning your data isn't just a technical hygiene, so it's a ethical hygiene. So errors, duplicates, and noise in your data don't just make your model messy, they make it wrong. So if you are missing data disproportionately affects one group, even your cleaning process can introduce bias. So be rigorous. So use methods like imputations and anonymity detection. So validate that your clean data works equally well across demography slices. And most importantly, document everything. So if someone at your team cannot explain why a row was removed or a label was changed, you have lost traceability. So clean data is not just better, it's more accountable. So next slide. So audit for bias and drift. So bias is measurable and it should be measured. So use tools like demographic parity, equalized odds, or subgroup accuracy comparison to regular check whether your system is treating people equitably. So don't assume a model that was fair last quarter will remain fair indefinitely. So people change, markets evolve, and so does input data. So introducing what we call data drift. So that's why audits must be ongoing, not one and done. So set up bias dashboards, build in alerts for demographic performance drops. So bias is not static, it moves, creeps, and multiplies unless you watch for it like a hawk. So protect privacy by design. Privacy should not be afterthought. It should be a foundational design principle. So ask yourself, do you really need every data point you're collecting? If not, don't collect it. Consider using privacy enhancing technologies like differential privacy or federated learning. So these let you train powerful models without exposing raw data. So think of user data not as a commodity to extract, but as something sacred to protect. So the more respectfully you treat it, the more trust you build, and that trust will become one of your greatest assets in an increasingly privacy conscious world. So maintain data lineage and documentation. So transparency without traceability is a mirage. So if you can't trace where your data came from, how it was cleaned, or who last modified it, you cannot defend your model. So you can't improve it, you cannot audit it. So that's why data lineage and documentation are essential. Every data set should come with metadata. Just like products come with packaging labels, include who collected it, when, how, and why. So if changes are made, so version control them. Tools like data sheets for data sets or model cards help standardize this process. They turn invisible processes into accountable ones. So here is a summary, the 7 data best practices. Um, or your ethical toolkit. So follow them, and your AI systems will be more fair, more accurate, and more defensible. Ignore them, and you may end up with a system that excludes harm or violates. So think of these not as barriers, but as guardrails. So keeping your system aligned with your values and with the people it means to serve. And remember, responsible data isn't just good ethics, it's good engineering. So here is a quick scorecard for responsible data practices. So this radar chart provides a hypothetical scorecard based on how well teams typically implement responsible data practices. So notice that while most organizations do reasonably well in ethical collection and documentation, they often fall short in a bias, auditing, and data diversity. So that's important because even if your data is clean and documented, if it only represents a narrow slice of the world, your model will fail large swath of users. So the goal is balance. So we have to aim to score evenly across all pillars, not just one or two. That's the hallmark of a truly responsible AI system. So the power of real world case studies. So the case studies bring abstract ideas to life. So they turn responsible AI from a philosophy into a survival guide. So when we study real world examples, both successful and disastrous, so we gain insights into how seemingly small data decisions ripple outward to impact millions. So these stories are also tools for internal change. So when leadership does not understand the risk of bad data, a case study can spark that realization. And when teams are unsure how to do better, a success story can show them the way. So let's explore both sides, so cautionary tales and models to follow. So the failure case is the Amazon biased hiring algorithm. So in 2018, Amazon had to shut down an internal hiring tool that was trained to select top engineering candidates. So the problem, it consistently downgraded resumes that included words like women's, such as women chess club captain or volunteered with women in tech. Why? Because the historical resumes it was trained on mostly came from men, so reflecting the tech industry gender imbalance. So the model wasn't told to discriminate. It learned that male resumes lead to or led to hiring and optimized accordingly. So this case reminds us that models don't think ethically, they optimize mathematically. And if the pattern in our data are unjust, the AI will scale that injustice. So the harm didn't come from the algorithm, it came from the data behind it. So we have to be really careful about the input data when we are sourcing our algorithms. So the failure case, so another well-known failure is the compass algorithm. So this is used in criminal courts to predict whether defendants were likely to reoffend. So ProPublica 2016 investigation revealed that black defendants were significantly more likely to be labeled high risk even when they didn't refund reoffend, while white defendants with similar histories were rated low risk. Why? Because the model was trained on arrest records, which themselves were skewed due to decades of over policing in communities of color. So the system did not create racism; it magnified it. So this case underscores a painful truth. So when systematic bias exists in the data, so AI does not neutralize it; it amplifies it. So let's shift gears and let's look at the success story. So the Google's diabetic retinopathy model is a strong example of what's possible when responsible data practices are applied end to end. So the model was trained on thousands of high resolution retinal images. So each reviewed by multiple surgeons or doctors to reduce labeling error. So criticality, it was tested across diverse population in Thailand and India, ensuring ensuring it is generalized. So what's more, so Google collaborated with local clinics to get feedback on model development and continued refining based on the feedback. So they also documented everything, which built trust and accountability. So that is what responsible AI looks like. So we have to be accurate, fair, transparent, and deeply informed by the communities it serves. So in this slide, we will talk about the responsible AI tools and framework. So this horizontal bar chart shows adoption scores for popular responsible AI tools and frameworks. So the Google's model cards help teams document model intent, performance, and limitations. So the IBM's AI Fairness 360 toolkit lets you audit your models for bias and even apply fixes. So the Microsoft Responsible AI Toolbox integrates governance into development pipelines. So on the policy side, the EU AI Act and OECD guidelines set standards for risk bias or risk-based oversight. So while adoption for AI is growing, many teams are still in the early stage, but the tools are there and they are free. So there is no reason not to start using them today. We can get started with the AI. So the framework roundup and what's out there. So if you are wondering where to start, so there are some of the these are some of the most commonly widely recognized frameworks and tools. So Google Model Cards provide a snapshot of what a model does and where it may struggle. So the IBM's AI Fairness 360 helps you test and fix bias before it affects users. So the Microsoft Toolkit embeds responsible design into development and on the regulatory side. So the EU AI Act is creating tied risk categories so that AI used in the high stakes decision gets the most scrutiny. So the OECD's principles or guidelines offers a global view of what ethical AI should look like. So these aren't just theory; they're blueprints, and they're accessible right now. So this line chart actually simulates the data drift across 12 months. So as you can see, drift does not always happen suddenly. It often creeps in quietly as behaviors, markets, or population evolve. So if you don't track drift, your model might still be running and failing users without you knowing. So that's why it's essential to monitor drift metrics regularly and set up automated alerts. So when threshold are crossed, retaining should be triggered. So think of this like engine maintenance. So if you ignore small changes, they become bigger problems. So drift is inevitable, but failure isn't. So if you are paying attention. So what's next for responsible AI? So we are at a major turning point in AI development. So for year, the focus on B has been on building better models, but the industry is now recognizing that the real differentiator is data, how it is collected, governed, and maintained. So as a result, we are seeing a strong shift toward data-centric AI. So regulators around the world are also stepping in. The EU AI Act is categorizing systems by risk, while countries like US, India, and Brazil are drafting their own frameworks. So AI teams are also changing. It's no longer just data scientists and engineers. Now we are bringing in, lawyers, designers, and community advocates. Why? Because AI is no longer just a technical tool; it's a social force, and the public is watching. So if you want to keep trust, we must build systems that reflect shared values. So let's look at some of the key takeaways. So let's bring it all together. So the bottom line is simple. So if you want ethical AI, you need ethical data. Bias, privacy breaches, and pure documentation aren't just academic problems, they have real world consequences. But the good news, they're avoidable. So when we follow data best practices, we create AI systems that are not only more fair, but also more robust, transparent, and effective. We have seen what happens when the data is ignored and what becomes possible when it's handled with care. And the tools to get there aren't just hypothetical, they already exist. We just have to use them. So we have to start small, but start right. So one advice is that we don't need to have a PhD to build responsible AI. We just need to have the right mindset and some discipline. So some of the quick wins is we can define policy. We can define clear access rules. We can define the data sources and monitor the data regularly. So the key for this to get success is collaboration. So bringing data together um, is important as well as to bring together data people, business people, and ethic folks early and often. And we have to embrace a data first mindset when building AI solutions. So let's build AI that deserves our trust. So AI is powerful, but its power isn't measured in parameters or speed. It's measured in impact. So who does it help? Who does it harm? Who gets left out? Who often hear the phrase with greater power comes greater responsibility. So that's never become more true. That is now. So every time we make a data decision, what to include, how to clean, who to represent, we are shaping the future of AI. So let's make sure it's a future worth trusting. So a future that reflects not just what technology can do, but what it should do. So that's the standard we should all be aiming for. So, in the conclusion, as we close, I want to leave you with this. So, responsible AI isn't a feature, it's not something we bolt on at the end of the project. It's something we commit to from the very beginning. So, it starts with how we collect data, how we clean it, how we document it, and how we listen to the people it will affect. So, every single data decision is a reflection of our values, and those values become systemized in the models we deploy. So the good news, this is something we can change. We don't have to wait for regulators or react to scandal. We can lead by building better data pipelines, by being more inclusive, and by being more transparent without ourselves and with the old. So let's treat data not just as a code, but as a contract between technologists and society, and let's honor it. So responsible AI starts with you. So the most powerful part of AI isn't just algorithm, it's the data foundation beneath it. So data is not neutral, it reflects choices. So let's choose wisely. And I'd like to hear your thoughts or answer any questions. So let's keep this conversation going. And thank you for taking time and attending the presentation.
All right. Thank you very much, Rajesh, for such a wonderful presentation. And please, if you have questions, kindly signify. If you have questions, kindly signify. Okay, seems there are no questions. Thank you very much once again, Rajesh. Uh, to our partners, Outnovately Africa, Google developers on campus, EXU, and Legacy Lab, we say thank you very much. Before we leave, I need you all to follow our new Instagram account because the last one we were using got banned. So I need you all to follow us on our new Instagram handle at legacylab.ng. Kindly follow us to get updates. And also you can follow us as well on other social media handles such as Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Ensure to engage, like, subscribe, follow, interact with us on this social media platform. Thank you all for attending. I believe we have gained a lot from today's session. Like I said, responsible AI starts with us. It starts from you, it starts with you. So, and in conclusion, from what he said, it's a system that respects human rights and societal values. We should ensure presentation and inclusion. We should make sure our data is clean and validated. We should audit for bias and drift, protect our data by design, and maintain data lineage and documentation. Key components of responsible AI is fairness, transparency, accountability, and privacy. The best practice for responsible AI is data cleaning once again, diversity, bias auditing, ethical collection, privacy, and documentation. I believe we have all gained um one or two, more than one or two from today's series. And I want us to, like I always said, I want us to take it into action. We don't just listen over here, we take action. Thank you all once again for joining. See ya all next month, last Thursday. Have a wonderful night rest.